Story 1. Emotional intelligence. Communication skills. Interpersonal skills. Story 2. How to keep your mouth shut in stressful times. Do not tell your wife. And another thing. Do not ask the police officer, am I being detained? I am a traveling person. Do not ask that guy in the bar. Oh yeah. And what are you going to do about it? Do not be a doormat, but choose your words carefully, or just do not say anything when stress levels are high. Story 3. English grammar literacy. Sending emails and texts like you are 5 years old is a bad look. Story 4. How to find answers on your own and figure things out independently. Story 5. The basics. Tasty cooking on a budget, safe driving, responsible budgeting, and being good in bed. Story 6. Reading allows you to teach yourself anything. Story 7. Sociability and I am an introvert saying that can get you really far in life. Story 8. Emotional intelligence. Our happiness is closely tied to the quality of our relationships. Story 9. Probably social skills. Being able to meet people and talk to them regardless of who they are is a very important skill, and I have slowly begun to realize that as I grow older. Story 10. Self-discipline is the foundation for self-teaching and self-restraint. Story 11. Problem-solving is essential in every aspect of life. Story 12. Minding your own business. It is free to learn and could save your life at some point in time. Story 13. You all have good deep mental thoughts. Personally, I think cooking saves money because making food yourself allows you to eat good food. Story 14. Reading is a skill that you will use your entire life. If you do not have it, you will be completely lost most of the time. Story 15. To speak with people and to understand that you are not the center of the universe. Story 16. Daydreaming and escapism are important coping mechanisms against challenges in life that make life seem like a windowless wall of a prison cell, perfectly built from the slabs of circumstances and the mortar of hardship. Story 17. Cooking. Even the basics should be something everyone can do. Story 18. Learning to manipulate the force to save the ones you love from death. Story 19. Ninjutsu. You can climb walls, sneak up on people, throw throwing stars at those you do not like, and disappear in a flash of smoke. Story 20. When I was in my early teens, I really wanted to do this. Story 21. Knowing how to regulate your emotions and communicate your feelings properly without becoming overly emotional. Story 22. How to find food and water in nature. Navigation. Heaven help us if our modern conveniences fail. Story 23. Self-control. Basic mathematics and English. Time management. Initiative. Story 24. How you learn a topic varies for everyone. Each person has their own style or preference. Once you figure out how to understand a topic and apply it in your life, you can succeed at anything given time. Story 25. Be resourceful. People can be so unilateral they are not able to see the forest for the trees. Story 26. Basic DIY and home maintenance. Firstly, 90% of home DIY or maintenance is a lot simpler and easier than people think. It just requires time and patience for the first few attempts, and the only advantage most contractors have over you is speed. The quality, if you actually take your time, is either going to be on par or better. Secondly, it will save you a lot of money. Most home maintenance or DIY can be learned quickly through online tutorials, and you are pretty much good to go as long as you have the right tools. Most jobs require very basic tools. A cordless drill with a few bits, an adjustable spanner, gas pliers, a hammer, a wood chisel, and a spirit level. You can get all that for less than £100, which is less than the labor cost of a single day if you hire someone. Lastly, not only can you save money doing your own work, you can make a good wage if you decide to go self-employed, even with these basic skills. You can also make some extra cash on weekends or as a side business. It is understandable that having the confidence to begin is challenging, but there is not much you can seriously damage with basic tasks. For painting, just take your time. If you change a tap and there is a leak afterward, apply plumber's putty and tighten the nuts a little more. If you replace a light switch and the breaker activates, take it off and check the wiring. It is honestly a great skill to have. If you know how to do the basic tasks, you are already 75% of the way to learning more complicated skills. Story 27. Playing a musical instrument proficiently is valuable. For instance, in the past, orphans in orphanages were taught to play harmonicas with the realistic expectation that if all else failed, they would be able to earn money on the streets. Besides that, if you play guitar well, you attract attention. If you can learn tunes, you can play for yourself, which is much more rewarding than just listening to recordings. Additionally, being handy with tools is useful, as repair costs by professionals are often very high. Story 28. Tolerating eating food from the grocery store saves you a lot of money in the long run. Story 29. Learning is a process that continues throughout your entire life. Figuring out what works best for you will be incredibly useful. Story 30. How to stay calm when problems arise or you find yourself in a crisis. Story 31. Reading. If you can read, you have the foundation to learn anything else you might need. Story 32. Excel offers many useful features, and becoming the Excel expert at your workplace can be a significant career advantage. This does not require advanced programming or scripting, just basic skills like pivot tables, charts, lookup functions, formulas, and connecting to databases can make you appear highly competent. In corporate America, employees who avoid layoffs are often those who maintain important Excel spreadsheets that many people in the company depend on. Story 33. Critical thinking. It is important to be able to identify false information. Story 34. Time management. Once you have learned to manage time, you will be able to find time to learn any other skill. Story 35. Learning that everyone in your life fits into different categories. Do not force people into places where they do not belong. Story 36. Nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills. Girls only want boyfriends who have great skills. Story 37. Cooking, personal finance, sex, calming down, impulse control. Story 38. How to treat people correctly. That is a universal skill. Story 39. A bit meta, but learning how to learn. I know many people who do not know how to research, how to gather information from various sources, how to synthesize and summarize it, or how to study effectively for both the short term and long term. Once you learn the process you need to follow to learn, picking up new skills becomes very easy. Story 40. Someone once told me, common sense is an uncommon virtue. That stuck with me. So, be logical and do not make decisions that are beyond your means to succeed. Story 41. A second or third language opens many doors for you. Story 42. Troubleshooting and fault isolation. Make sure you are not always the person driving the train or backhoe, whatever the case may be. However, everyone who drives needs your skill set. Story 43. Money management. If everyone had decent financial literacy, payday loan and rent-to-own stores would not exist. Yes, sometimes they are a necessary evil, but not enough to sustain an industry worth billions. These businesses rely on people being too impulsive and uneducated about money. I would argue the entire industry is inherently predatory and should be treated as such. Story 44. Good executive functioning and emotion regulation are essential. Without these, you cannot succeed, even if you have a wide range of other skills. Story 45. Interpersonal skill is critical to personal and career success. Story 46. Proper knife skills for cooking will save you years of time. Story 47. The art of charisma. History has shown that a good speech can convince armies to march into battle. Bartering is very useful sometimes, and in the worst-case scenario, you could talk someone out of a difficult situation. Story 48. Everyone should probably know how to cook at least a handful of meals. Story 49. A book called Limitless by Jim Quick teaches how to learn and how to learn faster. Story 50. Language and communication are essential. Without language, you would not be able to communicate efficiently, self-advocate, or live a functioning life. Communication is key. Story 51. Cooking. Everyone needs to eat, and when you become skilled at cooking, you will enjoy food you love more often. It does not require extra money, at least not money you would not spend otherwise. Story 52. Anything that keeps you alive, followed by anything that saves you money or time. Story 53. Social skills are worth learning because they can take you far in life. Story 54. Critical thinking. Please learn how to think critically in situations. Too many people are dying because they cannot or choose not to think. Story 55. Learning how to communicate effectively and collaborate with others is essential in most professions. There is no downside. Story 56. Being able to easily change your mind when new information becomes available. Story 57. Evidence-based reasoning and data-driven decision-making. Story 58. Talking to others is a skill, and like any other, it can be improved through intentional practice. Story 59. Everyone is talking about critical thinking or something important, and my immediate thought was knots. Story 60. A second language. Assuming English is your first language, I would say Spanish followed by Chinese. The former helps with life in the United States and some traveling, while the latter helps with career opportunities. Story 61. In my opinion, self-identification means not limiting your personal development based on what you should be or what is typical. I am not suggesting doing drugs or anything like that. I am emphasizing the importance of not basing your life on stereotypical ideas of normal. Why is this important? Allowing for self-identification lets you feel free to choose your career, live a happier life, feel more authentic, and contribute better to society. If everyone acted the same, we would lack almost every skill. Story 62. How to maintain polite relationships when necessary with those you dislike. Story 63. Obtaining and preparing food and water. You cannot survive without them. Story 64. Cooking. You are not self-sufficient if you cannot cook for yourself. Story 65. I will disregard the intellectual ones, which everyone will mention. Driving, reading, mathematics, interacting with others, controlling large reptiles. Story 66. Reading people to determine if someone is being honest or deceptive. Story 67. Shocked I did not see listening. People do not listen to each other anymore. They just wait until they get to talk. Story 68. Not sure if it is really considered a skill, but money management is important. How to make the most of what you have and how to properly invest to make it grow. It is a skill I do not have and always wish I did. Story 69. Cooking, from survival in the wild to the social environment. Story 70. For men, learning to defend yourself and others. It does not always mean fighting. Story 71. A good work ethic means you have to leave the house and actually do something. Never mind. Story 72. Critical thinking. You will know when someone is trying to deceive you or when things you see and read on social media are legitimate. It is the lack of critical thinking that is responsible for flat earthers, anti-vaccine individuals, Make America Great Again supporters. The list goes on. Story 73. Universally, the most useful language is English. Story 74. Home improvement. I will never be a handyman like my dad or grandfather, but having basic knowledge saves a lot of money. I just bought a house, installed some shop lights, and fixed a broken dishwasher. I could have easily paid hundreds of dollars for just those two tasks if I did not have a basic understanding of things. Story 75. Self-control and the ability to build good interpersonal relationships. Story 76. Active listening. After that, how to sharpen your kitchen knives. Story 77. Emotional intelligence is a trainable skill and is more self-trainable than being taught. You must have the will to want to self-regulate. Story 78. Being able to talk is important. Good charisma is essential for success. Learning how to communicate with people and read their expressions is a valuable skill because people appreciate when you remember what they say. Story 79. I was going to say the ability to fix cars. I have saved thousands of dollars by doing it myself with a little bit of help from YouTube and borrowed tools, even with complex tasks. I was raised by a mechanic, which may have contributed. Story 80. Treating everyone with kindness and respect unless or until they give you a good reason not to. Story 81. basic car maintenance and knowledge. Even if you are not physically capable of doing it, just knowing what and how things work is important. Story 82. Trusting your gut literally ignites survival mode. Sometimes we have to learn to trust it. Story 83. Well, swimming is perhaps the skill you will most regret not learning if you suddenly need it. Story 84. In terms of subjects in school, English and mathematics. English provides a greater source of learning material. Mathematics develops logical thinking. Story 85. How to breathe without having to think about each inhale and exhale. Story 86. Formal logic. Skillfully using logical reasoning with sufficient rigor and correctness is of utmost importance in many areas, from learning the logic of mathematics to successfully understanding and utilizing the formal properties of linguistic processes. This allows for optimal language communication and comprehension skills. It is useful for many different modalities relevant to life. Story 87. Cooking, cleaning, and sewing are actually very useful. I have saved clothes and $100 coats this way. These activities are the best way for you to learn, retain information, and recall it. The last part is my issue. I can learn whatever I want and retain it, but recalling is hit or miss, and it is very annoying. Story 88. Learning to grow the food you consume is valuable. With our project, we also lift this burden from you. Story 89. Those who dismiss critical thinking are mistaken. Learn to seek advice from people more knowledgeable than yourself, and you can lead a full and happy life without believing in incorrect ideas. Story 90. Communication is essential. Much is lost in translation, even when using the same language. Many people emphasize critical thinking, and I wholeheartedly agree that it is very important. However, the ability to communicate that critical thinking is even more important. You can develop the right idea or set of actions through critical thinking, but if it is not communicated well, it becomes ineffective. Story 91. Basic technology skills. In this day and age, there is no reason not to know how to use a computer, or at least a smartphone or tablet. I meet people every day who do not even know how to use the card terminals at the grocery store. I am not telling you to start coding and writing programs or hacking world governments, but at least be able to check your email without sending the entire contents of your bank account to a scammer. Learn how to conduct internet searches. Learn how to turn your caps lock off. Learn to take your card out of the terminal when it says remove card. Story 92. Public speaking. Even if you never plan to step on a stage, once you have delivered a successful speech to a group of people on a regular basis at your Toastmasters group, talking to an attractive person of your favorite gender or asking your boss for a raise becomes much easier. Story 93. Sales can generate significant income without requiring a formal education, depending on the individual. The key is to be personable. Story 94. Welding is a reliable skill you can always fall back on, no matter what. Any trade can be valuable. I just happen to be a welder. Story 95. Taking useful notes. I am not very skilled, but I manage to hold on to good-paying jobs because I take notes in meetings. Story 96. Cooking. If you are alone or relocate to a different city, state, or country and need to cook and manage your own meals, it is important to learn how to cook and provide for yourself, not just cooking instant noodles. You cannot survive on instant or packaged food or food delivery all the time. Story 97. My first thought would be time management, but I guess enjoying your time is probably the best skill to master. No matter what you do or do not do, simply enjoying the present should be an important skill to have. Story 98. Cooking because I keep hearing people cannot even cook a hot dog, and even worse, cannot hold a knife. Story 99. How to take good notes. I really did not learn this until my junior year of high school. At least it served me well for community college. Unfortunately, the note-taking skill does not work very well for subjects with numbers like mathematics. Story 100. Foresight. I think being able to see how actions lead to consequences is critical for functioning in society and is a building block for learning most other skills. Story 101. Communication. Modern humans still have many old traits, and social ability is what made us great. In the last few decades, Our social abilities have been strained by the emergence of technology in various states, usually because it has been used as a tool to manipulate people through the modern era. However, communication is still the greatest skill a human can have because individual survival depends on group survival. Story 102. Listening. Many people believe they possess this skill but are mistaken. If you prefer to watch television with subtitles, you are not a good listener. The people in your life probably tell you that you are not a good listener, but you do not listen when they say it. Story 103. Sales. Trust me on this, I was a lonely kid with social anxiety. I got thrust into a door-to-door sales job, and let me tell you, it changed me. I look at the world differently now. Not the cocky, oh, I'm better way, but the I bet I can negotiate that house price better kind of way. Story 104. Literacy. It does not matter the language. In today's world, being able to read and write is basically taken for granted. You are at an almost unimaginable disadvantage socially, financially, and legally without this skill in the 21st century. Story 105. Improving methods for learning new skills, especially the more difficult and valuable ones. Story 106. How to take care of your brain. It will make everything else better. It is how you interact. Story 107. Probably hand-eye coordination or fine motor skills or something like that. I could imagine life being pretty tricky without them. Story 108. The ability to influence people to do what you want without them even realizing it. Story 109. Swimming can save your life and allow you to save the lives of others as well. Story 110. Cooking. Swimming. Properly lifting heavy objects from the ground. Story 111. Good communication skills are essential in virtually every aspect of life, from personal relationships to professional environments. Story 112. I studied engineering physics, and I would say some of the most important skills are Fourier transform and Taylor expansion, coding in Python, data structures and algorithms, LaTeX, numerical integration. Story 113. How to communicate effectively. This does not mean writing something professionally. It means understanding your audience. Basic rhetoric will get you far in life. Soft skills like communicating in conflict and taking an impersonal approach will make you very valuable to others. Almost every job requires these skills at some level. They will also help you advance faster if you have professional aspirations. You often hear about people complaining that someone less qualified got a job over them. Often, these people just have poor soft skills or soft skills that did not match those of other applicants. Most people can learn the practical side of a job, but networking, conflict management, and knowing people will bring you greater success than your abilities alone. Story 114. Cooking and hunting. It will help when you are alone on a deserted island. Story 115. I do not know if it is a skill, but situational awareness is important. Many people I see are just blind. They do not mind anything around them. When they walk in public, they have AirPods and a phone and are looking down while crossing the road. Even if they do not have those distractions, they still do not have good situational awareness. When something tragic happens, it always happens fast. So fast that people cannot react. Story 116. A foreign language. I read this comment attributed to Napoleon, but who knows? A man who knows 2 languages is worth 2 men. Story 117. English is the closest thing we have to a global language. As such, learning it is very useful. That aside, I would say the most important skill to learn is starting from the position of I am wrong on an issue. Many people assume they are automatically right, which hampers finding actual solutions to a problem. Story 118. Self-reflection. Now hear me out. You can learn to learn and all that, but if you cannot find your own faults in your behavior and actions, you will not learn from your mistakes. To find these faults, you need to reflect on yourself. Story 119. Emotional intelligence is especially important in a time when everyone thinks they are an introvert. Story 120. How to be kind to everyone no matter who they are. There is too much hatred around. Story 121. How to read, Part 2. Being able to think critically about what you are reading. If we are talking about a skill that helps with every part of life, impulse control and patience would be another. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.